As soon as I did, the older man I had seen earlier pushed the door open and walked into the room, carrying what looked like a body over his shoulder. He approached the workbench and placed the body onto the table. To my horror, he began carefully working on the body with an assortment of knives, cutting with precise movements. The entrance to the room opened again, and a group of hooded searchers entered and asked the old man if they had seen anyone matching my description. He insisted that he had not, and after scanning the room for a few moments, the men left as quickly as they had come. I waited stiffly in the barrel, holding my breath as best I could, taking in small breaths and staying as quiet as possible so as not to reveal my location. Suddenly, I heard the old man mutter to himself, "Oh yes, you will cook up nicely, won't you?" He let out a quiet sound. I gagged again, half with sickness and half with shock. I had caught the man's attention, deciding it was time for me to make a move. I silently lifted the lid of the barrel and slid my soaked form onto the dark floor. Fear gripping me tightly, lid in hand, I rushed toward the surprised butcher and struck him on the head with a piece of wood. He dropped to the floor with a dull impact. I took the blade from his hand and made a dash for the door, but not before looking at myself under the dim light. My stomach turned as I saw my entire body soaked in a coating of blood and chunks of flesh. It dripped and pooled on the floor. It sickened me. Holding back the urge to be ill, I pushed the door open, revealing a dark tunnel, far more organic looking than anything I had seen in quite a while. All was silent except for the drips of blood from my skin and clothes. I quickened my pace as I heard shouting from far behind me. I held my breath, ignored my growing unease, and continued through the darkness. The nearly endless tunnel finally opened into a small candlelit room. It was only about 12 feet across, with an arched ceiling. I had very little time to examine my surroundings, for when I entered the room, I saw a hooded attendee with his back facing me, holding what appeared to be an old hunting rifle, though at first my heart raced as I anticipated the worst. I realized that he was unaware of my presence. Seizing the moment, I struck at the top of his head with my stolen weapon. The man let out a quick cry, fell to the ground, and lay still as blood pooled around his hood. I left the knife where it was and took the firearm. "Here's something I can use," I mumbled to myself as I slung it over my shoulder. On the floor, I noticed a small metal hatch. Seeing nowhere else to go, and remembering the search party on my trail, I opened it and descended the ladder it revealed. The ladder met the ground in a sheltered spot on the shore of a small pond. Near the ladder, I found plastic tubs filled with things like shoes, backpacks, and dog collars, among other items. Remembering the room with the old man and the unpleasant tendencies of the group, the sight of all these worn belongings was deeply unsettling. Grabbing one of the larger packs, I saw a pile of metal objects out of the corner of my eye. Bicycles. Taking a deep breath, I picked up the newest looking one and rode off through the woods as fast as the wheels would turn into the night. After moving onward through the woods for most of the night and eating some supplies I found in the bag I had taken, I finally arrived in town. Needless to say, my friends and neighbors were surprised by my return. However, I knew I could not stay and talk. Walking up to my house, Margaret rushed out to meet me. I didn't even look at her. I continued inside, gathered my belongings, and climbed into my car, with Margaret following me the whole way, asking me what was wrong and where I had been. I ignored her. She looked at me with a face of sorrow that I knew was just a mask, and when our eyes met, I could tell she knew the answers to her questions. I backed out of the driveway and made my way for the highway. I never saw that town or Margaret again. Many years passed. I traveled from town to town, but every time they found me, they always found me. For years I've been running from them, but I doubt I will ever escape their reach. I have found a safe place in this bar for 12 years, but I fear that they are now drawing near once again. I'm too old to run anymore, my friend. Just too old now? The bartender stared in astonishment. So that is why you have been so alone? Yes. I have fooled myself into thinking that the more I kept to myself, the safer I would be. The bartender hesitated. And you're drinking, The ceremony. The organ. Is that why? The storyteller let out a hearty laugh. Yes. When they do find me and try to harm me, I want them to regret it. The barkeep laughed grimly, and the older man noticed that the moon was low. He stood and dusted off his pants. I'd best be leaving now. The sun will be here soon. It was a relief to finally share this story with someone. The bartender smiled. It was a rare experience hearing it. Have a good rest of the night, Mr. Elm. Robert nodded and started for the door. He took the subway home like he had every night coming back from the bar, shaking his hands to keep the cold away. After a short ride, he made his way into his apartment building and climbed the stairs. He took a brief breath and slowly opened his door. After hanging up his coat and scarf on the coat hook and taking a seat in an armchair near the door, he looked off into the darkness. And something caught his eye. It was a large figure with pale green eyes watching him from the shadow of the apartment. Slowly, the shape moved forward to reveal a damaged face with a twisted, uneven smile. Robert Elm sat motionless as he looked up at the being. The thing spoke to him in a disturbing yet labored sound. "Good evening, traveler.